Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the JTM Community Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Melvin. If you're watching this, you already know who is with us today. This is our first in-person podcast ever, I want to say. Before we get into all of that, of course, if you want to touch base with me for advancement advising, you can do so at j-tm.community. If you want podcast-specific stuff, just add /podcast to that. It'll take you exactly where you want to be. The easiest thing you can do to be a part of the community is join the Facebook group. All the socials are on the website on the top right-hand side. TikTok also is not about the videos we make, but the liked videos, which has a bit of human connection, motivation, and inspiration sprinkled with a little bit of humor as well. Without further ado, again, if you're watching this and have seen the podcast before, you can tell that I am here with the one and only Tasha Melvin. I'll let her introduce herself here in a minute. Today we're doing the same format, so it's going to be 4 topics, so it'll end up being 4 episodes, 20-minute each, but with the slight alteration, because we had the benefit of doing this in person. You want to introduce yourself?
So I am Tasha, Jason's sister, mom of 3, grandma now, as of a month and a half ago.
Yep.
That's about it.
All right. So we are going to dive into 4 topics. The part 1 will be on moving on or giving up. The second will be on our lives, or our lives are what we create or what we allow. And then third will be the importance of creating traditions. And then 4th is what do we have too much of? Diving into the first topic.
And it also makes you look like you're bald. And you wouldn't be a bad looking bald dude.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
So diving into part 1, which has nothing to do with balding. Part 1 is on moving on or giving up. When I say those 2 things, what comes to mind?
So I just think what comes to mind for me, the first thing that comes to mind for me would be relationships.
Okay.
Whether with a significant other, children, family members, but also what comes to mind is like choices.
Okay. So how do you distinguish between the 2? Between moving on and giving up? Because those are 2 different mentalities.
Yeah, so moving on, so giving up to me is like, okay, you're done. You have no more fights on whatever it is, right? You're just done. Right?
Okay.
And you'll hear so many people say, in relationship wise, you know what, I'm just done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we hear it all the time. Giving up is it's okay. So when it goes to relationships, it's not like I give up on fighting with Josiah in the morning, but I'm not done with him, right?
Okay.
It's I am no longer am going to struggle against your will. Right? I may think that your will's wrong, or it may conflict with mine. It's kind of like, well, I just give up on that. Not that I'm done. I just give up on that. Same thing, so if there was a situation where I'm job searching, right? And I want a specific occupation. So let's say my specific occupation is I want to be a secretary. So if I'm done, right?
Well, so giving up or moving on.
So giving up is just, you know what? Like you feel defeated.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You just kind of feel defeated with giving up. You throw your hands in the air. I just give up. It's a surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on is just, for what I'm thinking is, you know what? This isn't working out in my favor. I'm going to move on, and it's to the next. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily has to be something else, but you're moving on from that as a choice instead of as a surrender.
So I think I follow. and maybe we agree with this, you didn't quite hit it, so I'm not sure, is when I think of those two things of giving up or moving on, to me, giving up feels like the victim mentality of a thing, and moving on seems like the empowered mentality of a thing. Like I give up on something that I feel is out of my control, or I'm a victim of, or just kind of that like sense of lacking of whatever is happening, whether it's an effort on someone's part or time or energy or money or whatever it would be. And then moving on is kind of like that empowered approach to say, I've done this work, whether I got the result that I wanted, whether I didn't get the result that I wanted, I'm moving on.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you might move on with someone to have that conversation. This is what I'm doing. You can go with me or not. But I'm moving on. I'd love for you to be there, but if you're not up for that ride, you're not up for that ride. Well, I'm moving on.
Think of it in a teacher classroom, right? If a teacher's teaching you algebra or math, right? And a student's not getting it, but the rest of the class is, they're going to say, okay, well, we're moving on. Okay. Which means they're going to continue. Yep. But if they say, you know what, I give up, I'm done. That's just, okay, I can't do anything. Right. It's out of my control. And I guess it is more of the victim mentality than it is, you know what, we have something to do. We have somewhere to be. We have goals. We have things to meet. I'm moving forward. I'm moving on.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think that if so many people get stuck into the mindset of, instead of I'm moving on, they get stuck into like this I quit or I give up kind of mentality, when a lot of damage has to happen first. And we know it when it's happening. Like we can see it, right?
Sure.
At the same time, I feel like there's a threshold. So if your threshold's here and it's starting to fill, right?
Yep.
So it's not until that threshold's hit. So all that's damage that happens before somebody feels that sense of like hopelessness or whatever. I've tried, I can't.
Sure.
I give up. Right. If we can change things, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in occupations, whether it's in hobbies, whether it's in interests, whether it's time invested in someone, where that thing doesn't even exist. It's just an I'm moving on. So then when that starts to tick, but that's already the mindset, you're having conversations, right? You're acknowledging things. You're not avoiding things. You're not trying to get like uncomfortable because you're conflict avoidant or you don't want to rock the boat or whatever. It would just be hey, Tasha, like we haven't talked, what the fuck, right? Or even a couple months ago where I was like, hey, like there's part of this that was on me and I don't want that to be a thing. So I'm coming in a couple of weeks.
Sure.
Right. That was more of the, like, I'm moving on from the shit that was.
Right.
And this is what's going to happen.
And there's so many people though that can't move on from something. Like
that, I disagree. There's so many people who choose not to move on. And when I use the word choice, I do not imply ease, because there are messed up things that are real hard.
But it's the mindset. You hear a lot of people in conversation like, well, this A, B, and C happened. I just can't let it go. Right? And it's the choice of them not willing to move forward. And I think a lot of the times it is to keep that, and I'm sorry to say it, but the victim mentality of, well, poor me, this keeps happening.
Sure. Well,
So when I say I give up, all this happened, I give up, I'm not the bad guy. It happened to me.
Sure.
Right. And then when somebody says, you know what, I just chose to move on. So let's, even in relationships. So, because I guess this is the best way and probably something that everybody has experienced in their life is, dating young. And me personally, like I've been in relationships where I've allowed things to happen and happen and happen and happen and happen. And then finally something hits that threshold and I'm like, you know what? I give up. I'm done. And part of that is, I don't want anybody to view me as the bad person. Like, I could already see that it's going south.
Sure.
You don't want anybody to view you as the bad person. But in society's view, it's okay to be the victim. Wow, she's been through so much. Wow, she allowed so much. No wonder why she left. Well, you have that, right? But then now, if somebody says, okay, so let's say Denny and I, who's my fiance, we were kind of going through things right now with vehicles and jobs, things like that. And if I were to say, okay, well, I don't like, Denny, how you handled this, or whatever our disagreement is, or if it was totally against my moral chart. And I say, you know what? I'm moving on. As a relationship, people are like, wow, what a bitch. Wow, but we're so scared that society's going to say that, because everybody's like, personally, me, I don't care what anybody thinks. But a lot of people do. Like, you don't want to be that heartless bitch, even though it's okay for you. Like, it's making a hard choice of, I'm moving on. The choice is correct for that person, but they don't want to be viewed in society or family members or friends as that bitch who just decided to move on.
Yeah. I mean, I follow you, which I think is a part of that is accurate. But I think it's only a part. So, sometimes I feel like that element isn't just in a victim mentality as much as it can also be to protect yourself from similar things.
Sure.
Right. The flip side is a lot of time that comes externally from your own morals or ethics. Well, I'll pick on you for a second.
Sure.
Just yesterday, and hopefully this is okay to talk about. If not, I guess you'll never know because we'll cut it out. Yesterday we were talking about the house.
The other property.
The other property.
Okay.
Right.
So just to catch everybody up to speed really quick, I live in a house. My neighbor's house came up for sale, got it dirt cheap. Daughter was at an age, going to have a family. That we started working on the house. I purchased the home. That fell through. Well, I still purchased the home. But she ended up pregnant. The house wasn't finished in time enough for her. There was a lack of communication, a lack of people doing what needed to be done on everybody's part. That fell through. Her and her fiance and the grandbaby now, they have now bought a house. I've disappeared. Oh, hi, there I am. Anyways, so then now I'm giving my son the same opportunity as I gave my daughter with the house.
So if you use that as the mindset, right, as you were navigating all of this, and there were moments that created significant amounts of stress that caused harm to multiple relationships, right? At any point, at all of those points, that motivation was from within you,
right?
And it wasn't a moving on kind of mindset, because a moving on kind of mindset would have been, hey, I want to do this thing. This is where it fell through. This is the work that needs to happen. We need to do this. You commit to doing this. If they would have said, yeah, we're not going to do that, then it wouldn't have been this back and forth trying to navigate. It would be, this is what I'm going to do. Right. Even to this point, wanting to create that, I don't want to say the offer, but having this prolonged extension, I would say.
Sure. And
last night when we were talking, and at the very end of that conversation or conclusion, that was the moment I watched your brain go click, moving on. So this thing, if that thing, nope, then moving on.
Oh, sure.
But in the past, it wasn't that.
No, but there's issues with that, right? So when you communicate with somebody, and they're like, yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen. I don't feel that you have to have a conversation at the beginning of, well, if you don't keep your word, this is what's going to happen.
No, you wouldn't need to.
Right.
No, but what I'm saying is it's the lack of conversation or direct conversation.
So let's go to where we're at now with that same property.
Sure.
And me and you kind of shared this conversation yesterday. So now we're going through this with my son, who with wintertime being right around the corner, will just pay the mortgage and pick back up on it in the spring. It is a project home. We knew that when we had purchased the home. But at the end of the day, if I cannot get commitment and them to help and work on it, and because at the end of the day, it benefits them, not me.
Right.
But if you choose not to do it, I'm no longer going into financial ruins because you're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is come spring, if there's no motivation, there's no movement on that end,
mm-hmm.
the deal's off the table. Like,
sure.
I'm to the point, and that's where it would be, I'm moving forward.
That's the move on mindset.
Right? Yeah. But then you're like, you'll always get from the other parties of, well, damn.
Yeah. Well, because it feels brash, especially when you haven't upheld that kind of like approach before.
Well, moving on
mm-hmm.
is something with set boundaries.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
Giving up.
Yep.
Is I'm just done.
And we see people give up all the time, right?
Okay.
So it could be Josiah getting ready for the football game,
yep.
right?
Yep.
Or the candy bar, for example.
Right.
Very easy to just say, fine, whatever, have whatever you want.
Right.
Right? That's a giving up.
Yep.
Moving on would be, we had this conversation, you're not going to get that candy bar. Like, that's not a thing that we do.
Right. This is what we're doing.
We've done this before. Right. We're not doing it again.
But moving on, like, nobody can just say, well, I'm moving on without a plan. Giving up, you can give up without a plan.
Oh, sure.
I give up. But you can't move on.
Well, giving up is just saying, essentially, I'm just going to let things happen.
Sure.
Versus, I'm going to be the one that takes action.
Right. I'm going to take control of the situation
mm-hmm.
and make it happen, whether it's A, B, or C.
Sure. Or it could be a thing you don't know. You don't know the result. You only know the action. It might be, I'm going to look for a new job. I don't know where that job's going to be.
Right.
Right.
But I'm looking for a new job.
Yep. But I'm looking for a new job. That's what I know.
I'm moving on.
Yep.
I'm done is something happens at work and fuck this place, I'm out.
Yep.
Like, I'm done.
The little I quit.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. So if we take those two things, because I want to try and have a tangible example of both. So can you think of a moment in time where you had the I give up, like a situation where it was the I give up mindset, and then a situation that was I'm moving on mindset?
Well, so
nephew's over there crawling on the floor for some reason.
He's going to transport. So typically, me personally, you get both. You get okay, I give up. I'm done. And to me, that's my breaking point. And right after that hits I'm moving on.
Okay. So first it hits like the flood of, I've tried everything I can, I'm fucking done.
Yeah,
and then after that, so for you, almost the I'm done, I give up is the emotional mindset, Saya. That's what I said, don't do it.
You told me that he could have candy after football.
The emotional mindset is I give up. The like logical, rational mindset seems to be the I'm moving on.
Yes. For me, like it's rare that I make a choice and say, you know what? I'm moving on. It's always, I have to have the damage.
Mm-hmm. That's, again, it's getting up to your threshold.
Yeah, it gets up to my threshold.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, you know what? Fuck this, fuck you.
Too much.
Yep. I'm done. Throw my hands up in the air, I'm going to walk away.
Okay.
And then I get okay, now I'm moving on.
This is how I'm going to do it.
This is what's going to happen. And it's almost instantly for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I can never say that I've just had one or the other at any specific time.
I think I used to be similar, but have been different for a long time. I think I used to be like, here's the threshold, and then once it got to a point, and that threshold was gauged very, very poorly.
Sure.
And then as I've gotten older, or wiser, or maybe less patient, I'm not sure like what adheres to that, is like I just hit the I'm moving on. But it's never in the sense of jadedness or bitterness or like a sense of like harm or
Right.
hurt. It's just like that's not kosher. That thing is not an acceptable dynamic.
Right.
I'll tackle it. Like I don't just go, oh, this thing happened, I'm gone.
Oh, you see the issues before they become the actual damage.
Yep. So I see the issues, I address the issues, and if that person, place, or thing wants to persist in the issues,
Right.
that's when I'm like, that's not good for anyone. I'm moving on.
Right.
Or it won't be just a moving on. It'll be having that conversation. That's a hurtful approach, and this is how, and explain it. Like this, we need to do it different. I don't necessarily know how to do it different, right? But this thing has to be done different.
Right. Something has to be adjusted.
And if there's not like a sense of like mutual work or effort on the thing, then I don't have time for the drama and the games and like the bullshit that.
Right. Your threshold becomes smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah. I would say
it just rushes you more to the fuck that.
Yep. And I don't even feel the fuck that.
Right.
It's just, that's unacceptable. Like I've tried to address it. You made it very clear that you want to be in this unhealthy state of mind, or take this approach, or be hurtful, whatever that would be. I don't do it out of surprise. It's not like I've never had the conversation, right? Or never addressed the thing, even with our cat.
Right.
Like it's when we were talking about taking Gravy out, and he sits on my lap outside, he gets 3.
Right.
And then we go in.
And I'm not mad about that. But I am going to tell you,
we're out of time.
We're out of time, and we're moving on.
There you go. So again, thanks for spending a little bit of time with me this afternoon. I know we kind of crammed it into a busy Saturday after a football game. Of course, if you want to touch base with, are you shaking your head no?
No, it's always busy.
Oh.
It doesn't matter. We're cramming it in somewhere, right?
If you want to touch base with me for advancement advising, you can do so at j-tm.community. If you want podcast specific stuff, just add /podcast to that. Of course, top right-hand side are all the social medias. The easiest thing you can do to be a part of our community is to join the Facebook community. Every Monday, a new episode goes live. Every Monday, a new poll also goes live. You all dictate what the topics that we discuss are. So send in your stories, share your input, give us those life experiences, and then we turn that into topics. Of course, you can check out the TikTok. Again, it's the liked videos, not the videos we create, for a little bit of motivation, inspiration, human connection, and a little bit of humor. Thank you, everyone, for joining in and being part of a community where you belong.